Nigeria Info 99.3. Welcome to the second part of Dailies today. A very lovely morning to you wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. We're streaming live on Facebook. We're also live on YouTube this morning. You're most welcome to join our conversation this morning. I'm Sheriff Quadry, by the way. Majeed Dahiru will be joining me any moment now. I think he has joined the show already. Dr. Majeed, good morning to you and thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
Yes, indeed. Let's begin the analysis this morning. Lagos, please. You can watch us live on Facebook and on YouTube. Nigeria Info 99.3. Dr. Majeed Dahiru joins us from Abuja this morning. We're going to be looking at the papers together. You can drop your comment on our live stream on Facebook and on YouTube. Let's start with this one, Dr. Majeed. NLC FG workers demand minimum wage review. That story is on page 9 of the Vanguard newspaper. Let me just take a few lines of that story. The story reads, Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, and federal government workers have demanded an urgent review of the national minimum wage, insisting that the current 70,000 naira is no longer sustainable. They made the demand following the bold steps taken by several states across the country to increase the minimum wage of their workers above the 70,000 naira benchmark in response to the prevailing economic realities. NLC FG workers demand minimum wage review.
To say that the 70,000 minimum wage is unsustainable given the current economic situation will be stating the very obvious. It's clearly unsustainable. As a matter of fact, at the time it was implemented, it was far less than what was desirable at the time. You know, when the twin policy of subsidy removal and protection of the naira happened around this administration, I had warned then that it will create a bottomless pit of economic hopelessness that has no light at the end of it. And so what we are seeing today is that this agitation for an increase in minimum wage will continue as long as inflation keeps rising. And you see, the inflationary trend in Nigeria is such that it is being caused by cost of energy and the volatility of the exchange rate. So both of them are mutually reinforcing to create a situation of unprecedented levels of inflation. And so it is only normal for labor to continuously ask for increment in salaries and wages.
Right.
70,000 naira today is clearly the lowest minimum wage Nigerians have ever earned since 1979. This is the lowest it has ever been. The current 70,000 naira minimum wage is less in value than the 30,000 naira minimum wage that was implemented some years ago. So it tells you the reality on ground. And that's why we keep warning that. For me, what is important for government to do now is not to think that they can contain the effects of their economic policies with increasing wages that they cannot afford to do, or probably trying to apply some palliative measures. They need to go back to where we were. And I keep insisting, most people have given up and have adjusted to living under this condition. And I'm saying, no, it's not possible. Subsidies must be restored on petroleum in Nigeria to correct that which has gone wrong since 2023 on the morning of May 29 when he declared subsidy gone on petrol. Whereas the government has unfloated the naira tactically. They have unfloated the naira by intervening in the foreign exchange market. They now auction forex to authorized bureau de change. But it must be done more drastically because the value of the naira as it stands is still not very sustainable for our economy. It's hurting both our import and export economy, no matter what anybody wants to tell you. Because for you to export finished goods, you need to import heavy machinery. With this level of foreign exchange, that makes it almost impossible. So what Nigerians are leveraging on now is export of primary products, primary agri-produce. That doesn't really add much value to the economy. Base minerals, crude oil. We can't manufacture, we can't compete with any other player, even in the continent, in manufacturing and in the export of finished goods. So Nigeria's economy is not export competitive. And that is because, sir, the fundamentals of any economy is energy security. Security is the availability, the accessibility, and most importantly, the affordability of energy products and services. You see, the affordability component of energy security now makes it mandatory for government to intervene from time to time through the instrumentality of subsidy. Let me also mention that Nigeria is the only OPEC country in the entire universe where citizens are made to buy fossil fuel derivative products at market rate. No other country does that. Now, government has a key responsibility to provide affordable energy for production, because subsidy is an investment in productivity, because when you provide subsidy for energy, it allows productivity. That is also simple. You see, in common sense economics, energy is described as the oxygen of the economy. That is, without which you can't even be alive, you can't even stay afloat. That's why the government responsibility. So when the president took the misguided steps of floating the national currency and remove subsidy on petrol, which is Nigeria's most utilized energy product, by the way, the president committed an economic harakiri, economic suicide. So such demands as increasing minimum wage and all of that will continue ad infinitum if the fundamentals are not reset. And to reset this fundamental is to go back on this policy. No matter what anybody tells you, there is no country in the world, sir, that floats its energy market. None. Not China, not the United States, not anywhere in the Middle East, not in Europe. Why is Nigeria different?
Good question. Very good question. Dr. Majeed, let's move on to our next story this morning, which is also in the energy space. And there is a story that's been trending. Dangote Nupeng face-off. FG urges caution. What's your understanding of this development? How do you see it? How do you view it?
You see, again, it goes back to the policy of deregulation. You see, when you deregulate, what the labor unions are asking for now, what other associations are asking for now, or unions, Itman and Co., it becomes a little bit irrational. But I understand their fears, I understand their concerns, I understand their sentiments. But sentiments as against a policy that all of them subscribe to. It was that same policy of deregulation that took petroleum subsidy from you and I as an ordinary consumer, right? Now, how it's affecting them now is that the space has been opened up for any player to come in. So Dangote, for instance, has invested in the midstream of the oil and gas industry by creating or building a refinery that is working. So Dangote is now trying to go to the downstream, that is to go into distribution and supply, further down the value chain, down below where he is now at the refining stage. So he wants to be a player in the downstream sector. And that is no longer stopping a single individual from investing across the entire value chain from the upstream to mid to downstream of the oil and gas industry. There is no law. In fact, the more the merrier. So what he's bringing an innovation, for instance, that will make him independent of independent petroleum marketers to service his customers directly. There's nothing wrong with that. Now, but the fear of this other people is that with the level of investment it might displace them from the market. Sorry, you guys should not innovate and see how you can remain alive and afloat within the system. These are the perils of the regulation. Now, if we are consulted, that'd be an issue. Like I keep saying, I do not think that an important sector like the energy sector should be deregulated in the way a manner was done. If banking can be regulated, if telecoms are regulated in Nigeria, if medical practices are regulated in Nigeria, even if law practices are regulated, if investors are regulated, you can't start talking about the regulation of the oil and gas industry or the energy sector. So with some level of regulation, that would have been safeguard for you and I, by way of subsidy on products for you and I to consume and utilize for our productivity. That would have also been certain rules to protect existing investors in the sector, such as Ipman and other unions that are actually talking about these issues now. and allow everybody to have some level of safety and protection. But when you deregulate and free up the market entirely, you remove all the safeguards, and you're only guaranteeing what you call fair play amongst all the players. I'm sure with time, Ipman and Co will learn to live with this reality. So they cannot oppose it in bits and pieces. It has to be a holistic review of the regulation. If you must have this conversation, but you cannot cherry pick as it favors you. Like let me emphasize again, I do not necessarily support the regulation of any energy sector anywhere in the world, but it has happened through the PIA. So what they should be looking for or looking towards now is to demand for the wholesale review of the PIA to restore some government responsibility, where government, for instance, will have the power to regulate Dangote's participation in a manner that will not affect their own businesses. But as it stands, the government has no such power at all by the PIA at all. So Dangote cannot be prevented from doing the needful.
What's the best outcome we can have? I mean, they have a meeting today with the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dangote Group, and Nupeng. But what's the best outcome we can have? Because their strike starts today.
The Minister of Labour have been sleepless over this matter, trying to engage with all the relevant stakeholders. I think dialogue will still have to be the solution and the way forward. I do not think any form of debilitating strike will be the way forward, because that will be weaponizing your powers and privileges as a union in a matter that really has nothing to do with other government or the people. It is about a man coming into the business, and the law allows him to come into the business so long as he follows the due process, and he has followed the due process. So he can come in. But we understand the fears, we understand the concerns, and we are saying the reason for your concern is because there's a law in place called the PIA. It allows him to come in. So the PIA took away our own safety nets. So you see, I was one of those who didn't really support the PIA's passage. When I noticed some of these infractions, I know that it's going to affect almost everybody. But when they came for us, the unions didn't really care. Now they're coming for them. So, I mean, what if it was to do? But dialogue will be the way forward, because any strike now will actually aggravate the current economic situations on ground. So dialogue with an aim to find a safe compromise between Dangote and other operators in the sector, with the government actually mediating.
Indeed. Let's stay with the Guardian. I have this other story here in the Guardian newspaper. Sad weekend in the country. Quite a number of people lost their lives to terrorism. But this story here on page 6 of the Guardian reads: insecurity. Northern leaders demand state of emergency, sack of service chiefs. Dr. Majeed.
The solution is neither state of emergency nor sack of the Nigerian state itself is becoming equally. I keep saying this. We need to situate this situation within the larger context of statehood. Is the state failing? Is it exhibiting signs of failure that might eventually lead to a collapse? I'll tell you something that's happening within the system. And most people that are within the system actually understand it. First, you can't have national security. That is what you call, the physical security. Without first having energy security on one hand, and the financial security of the officers and men of your armed forces and other security agencies. My dear brother Sheriff, what is happening now, the reports we are getting now, in addition to underfunding of the armed forces, in addition to a lack of enough boots on the ground in terms of troop numbers, we are now contending with an additional problem of internal sabotage across the rank and file of the armed forces. I've had interactions with a number of security chiefs and even governors who clearly have informed some of us that officers and men of the armed forces are now caught red-handed, conniving with terrorists and bandits. Apart from selling arms and ammunition, which is commonplace now, they even now give out security information, including details of proposed security operations, with accurate due data to the opponents. These are things that are happening now. Why? Because the system is degenerating so fast that people are now using every opportunity they have to fend for themselves, to look out for themselves, and not for the state. Now, without making excuses for this rot, but let us also look at it clearly. Sheriff, the people you are paying, the people you have employed, to lay down their lives so that you and I can sleep. What is their pay grade? What is their salary level? What is the salary of a lance corporal? Before the recent increase in minimum wage, the salary of a private soldier in the army was 54,000 naira a month. 54,000 naira a month.
A month.
Yes. Now it's about 100 plus. Yes. Their feeding allowance used to be 1,000 naira a day. It was increased to 1,500 naira later. Now it's 3,000 naira. 3,000 a day for a soldier that is fighting in the war front. How much is it? How much is 3,000 naira for even a meal? For somebody who is not fighting a war, who is simply sitting down somewhere and trying to catch fun with friends, can 3,000 naira get you a decent meal? This is the level of welfare packages we are giving to those that are supposed to be fighting insurgency. So it is not about change service chiefs now or the crisis of emergency. There are fundamental issues. Now, so you agree with me that there's also a low morale in the army. Because one, we are fighting people that are more motivated than you. A bandit kidnaps a few people and gets hundreds of millions of naira in ransom. He has more motivation to fight than you, who has to go home every month with about 100,000 naira. An amount that is less than $100 a month. In fact, that amount is about, say, $40 a month. Or just about a month. If you compare that to the U.S. Army, for instance, an entry level soldier in the U.S. Army earns $22,000 per annum. 22 per annum. Let me also tell you that in Africa, by African standard, Nigerian soldiers and police officers are about the poorest paid in Africa. Lower than South Africa, lower than Ghana, lower than some countries. You wonder, really, is this really the truth? So how can such people give their best? Now, inadequacy of numbers, inadequacy of welfare, inadequacy of equipment is equivalent to what you saw yesterday. It will keep happening. Now the question is, why are those that are operating the state not thinking of doing more for those that have been employed? So when you go into the army, you sign what is called a contract of unlimited liability because you are expected to die in service of the country. How come we are not taking care of them enough and getting what it requires to fight this war? This is on one hand, though. Now, on the other hand, sir, why are we having a Boko Haram insurgency in Nigeria? Boko Haram is a religiously motivated war. Boko Haram is the violent manifestation of Islamism that has characterized the Muslim North for as long as I can remember, even as a Muslim. And some of us have said, one of the ways that at least reduce the frequency, to reduce the torrents of recruits that are poured into the rank and file of the Boko Haram insurgent group is to have a reform within the mainstream Muslim community. We must begin to read the mainstream theological framework of our religion on some of those tendencies that has resulted into jihadism. These people are carrying out what they have been taught. They are carrying out an ideal effort to bring down the Nigerian state that, in their opinion, is plural, is secular, and is democratic and constitutional, and erect in its place, because it is haram, erect in its place, a Puritan Islamic state that is conforming with their religious beliefs. Now, the problem is that this ideal is being preached all over the mosques in Nigeria, even in the Southwest here. It's according to the Southwest. Recently, we started hearing clamor for Sharia in the Southwest, the educated and enlightened Southwest. I call it Arewa's export to the Southwest anyway. So anybody you see in the mainstream, any person you see weaponizing religion, is an accomplice of Boko Haram ideologically. Nigeria should remain secular. So it protects all of us equally, whether you're Muslim or Christian. That is the meaning of secularism. That is, it gives everybody equal opportunity. Nobody is elevated one above the other. But why is it that in the mainstream there are attempts to dominate others. So in some states in the north, you have Sharia law in place, you have Hizbah in place, that the Nigerian police force cannot even check the activities. For me, these are miniature mainstream Boko Haram tendencies. That some other guys are trying to say, look, we need a wholesale one. This is not enough. So it has to be even-handed. The way the government must do its best to make sure that its fighting force is well equipped and well motivated. But the underlying issue is that no matter how much we equip your armed forces, no matter how well they are motivated, if this ideology persists, especially in the mainstream, this problem will never end. It will become intractable as it has become in Nigeria.
That's quite a way to put it. But Dr. Majeed, let's go to the Vanguard. There's this story here in the Vanguard that we need to look at. Serap sues RMAFC over proposed salary increase for politicians. I'm sure you've been following up this particular story ever since it broke.
Sometimes I wonder where Serap gets his energy from. I'm sure by now, if you go to the corporate history, they may have not less than 1,000 cases against public officers and some public policy decisions. Anyway, we give kudos to them for always standing up, to use legal means to challenge some government decisions or actions, and even inactions that they deem injurious to the Nigerian people and their welfare. Well, I think it is insensitive at this point in time at all for public office holders who have not been able to improve the life, the security and welfare of citizens that they were hired to do through the ballot box, to be contemplating of increasing their own salaries and wages. We know that they don't live by their salaries. We know it's no longer a secret in Nigeria. I mean, we know that governors, senators, ministers do not necessarily live by their wages. So we already know. But it becomes a little bit insensitive when you now want to make it an official thing, even when we know that corruption is still rife. An alternative means of sustenance is still there. We know, it's not if we don't know. I want to now look us in the face and now increase officially, even if it's by 1 naira, your remuneration, when you have totally, collectively, as a political leadership, failed to make Nigeria better than you guys have made it consistently. I think it's insensitive. And I think it should just perish it up, because do not provoke Nigerians beyond the level you have done already. It is not just insensitive, because I think it's also provocative. It should have been a conversation that should not have been thrown up at all. It shouldn't have happened at all. And I think from the public opinion so far, they should simply just bury that idea. They should leave that matter, because it will be so insensitive. Nigerians will feel so terribly bad that their leaders are people like Lion Kings who only care for themselves and their pride at the expense of the entire animalia in the jungle. So I think they should just leave it at that for now. We understand. We know that they don't live by those meager salaries, but they should leave it. It's sensitive and provocative to say the least.
All right. Let's take this story here in the Guardian newspaper. The same story is in the Daily Trust. In the Guardian on page 3, it reads, Shore CSO's pushback as DSS asks X to delete anti-Tinubu tweets. In the Daily Trust, they have it this way. FG threatens X, that's Twitter, over anti-Tinubu post. Shore vows resistance. That story is on page 35 of the Trust.
Here we go again. Well, even though sometimes I may not always agree with the statements, the positions, the tweets of political players, CSO people, those who simply are trying to hold the government account, I may not always agree with their views or the way they state their position. I may not always agree. I may think that there could be more decent ways to have said it. Another, but they have the right to say it as it is, as they still feel they do. And you see, public office comes with responsibility. A huge one. It comes with a burden as well. For you to take all of this in your stride, not because the person is right, not because the person is correct, but because you need to demonstrate that as a leader, you are tolerant. Tolerance is an aspect of leadership. It is a key, it's a fundamental quality of leadership. A lot of things will be thrown to you. A lot to be said. But I can assure you that if you're a good leader, if you remain steadfast, at the end of the day, you'll be vindicated by the good works, your legacy you left behind. I don't think anybody was as maligned as President Jonathan in the history of this country. I don't think any president was that maligned. I mean, he was maligned up to the point of death wish on him and his family.
Very true.
But today he's being so celebrated that if you take an opinion poll today, a significant number of Nigerians want him back in power, including those who are at the forefront of saying crucify him in 2015. They're not shouting Hosanna today, the Messiah we want. So that is the body of leadership. And for President Tinubu, I've had a lot of reasons to criticize him, his economic policies, his refusal to read the tea leaves correctly and take Nigeria towards a new direction and all that. But that's something I've always commended him for. His level of tolerance, even as governor of Lagos State and as president. I've always seen Tinubu as one of those who, for whatever it is worth, appears to be very tolerant of criticisms, appears to be very receptive of contrary opinions to his own. And I have seen him as like one of the most tolerant and broad-minded politicians. So, if for nothing, I would advise him to maintain that legacy. So that if there's nothing else he can remember for, this one will come for him. If he begins to clamp down on opposing voices, something that is novel to him, I mean, Lagos is the heartbeat of opposition to Tinubu himself. He lost Lagos. But if anybody's house is being demolished in Lagos, I didn't see any such actions against people in Lagos beyond the ugly incident of preventing an ethnic group from voting in subsequent election. But I'm saying largely, I mean, most of the most vocal critics of this man are residents in Lagos. And I've not seen any effort to either hush them, sanction them, or even cause bodily harm to them. I've not seen it. Rather, I see him reaching out to them once in a while, and respectfully too. So let him continue along that trajectory.
Okay.
Showore will always talk. People like Showore will always talk. It is their duty to talk. They will say it in ways you may not like, but just be focused. As a leader, you have a burden to carry, and that is the burden of leadership. So for me, it's just an advice generally that the president should just maintain that lane. We've known him for that. Despite whatever you may have against the president, you can't accuse him of being somebody who represses opinion or dissent. So let him maintain that legacy for the rest of his political career and in public service.
Dr. Majeed Dahiru, thank you for joining us on Dailies today, this morning. Thank you so much. We'll see you again on Wednesday.
Thank you.
All right. Lagos, there you go. That would be our analysis on Dailies today, this morning. Dr. Majeed Dahiru joining us all the way from the Federal Capital, Abuja, for the analysis. He returns on Wednesday at 7:30. In the meantime, at 8 o'clock, top of the hour, we have the news for you. After the news, we'll take a commercial, and then we'll go into the conversation about the impending resident doctors' strike. Dr. Tokwe Shindara would be joining me live all the way from the FCT as well this morning. And then we can talk to him about why doctors would start their strike on Wednesday, why they want to go on strike, and so much more to talk about. Stay here on Nigeria Info 99.3. We're not done yet. We're just getting started. Is it like? Is the last 1 hour that's left on the show? But then, please do stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
If you love conversations,
where else can you get it? Then the station best in talk.
That's why education is the main thing. Once you kill education, you can control the people.
Africans just like to play.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as